Hey folks, today we're covering Tinto Talks 71, and this is going to be covering the tonal religions in EU5. This is the religious group that you will find in Mesoamerica, including the Aztecs, and they're going to be covered in a Tinto flavor on Friday. So if you are interested in any of this, do make sure you're subscribed. We're getting a breakdown of this area of the world this week. And to begin with, they are going to show us the religious group, and there are 5 religions you will find within here. And the first one is Nahua ritualism. You can see it on the screen now. This allows you to have slaves working raw materials, army morale plus 10%, may build eagle and jaguar warriors, yes. Unrestricted slavery, yes. You're going to be doing some things with slaves, not necessarily having them work raw materials. I think we all know what you're going to be doing with some of them. Allows doom to impact your country. This is a system coming back from EU4. I know some of you probably are not going to be happy that this is coming back, but it is returning in EU5, and they are going to cover that if you don't know how this worked. It is slightly different, but if you have played it in EU4, it is kind of similar. And this also allows religious focuses. They're going to cover those in the dev diary today. So you can see there are 4 million people that follow this religion. That number's obviously going to go up and then, go down a little bit as some things happen later in your playthroughs as these realms. You can see next in the society screen, we've seen this for other religions like Catholicism, a breakdown of the religion that this realm is following. So you've got the primary religion, the language of that religion, and then the 6 main stats. So religious unity, conversion rate, holy sites, and then the different tolerances that they have. They have got some good tolerance, and they've also got some bad tolerance, especially for heathens. You can see further down here, you've got 6 gods. They're going to cover the gods in a minute. You've got the doom number. You've also got the religious aspects and then the religious focuses. We won't go through that too much here. They are going to give us a breakdown of most of these during this dev diary. And then similar to other religions, there are some religious actions that you can take which are going to help your realm, depending on which ones you choose to implement. Next, you can see that doom system coming back from EU4. This is a special currency used by countries that follow this religion, and this will passively increase by owning locations of this religion, especially urban locations. Having a high doom score will decrease the loyalty to Overlord and the stability decay of your realm, but it will increase the estate satisfaction equilibrium inside your realm as well. So, you do want to balance this a little bit. Those decreases, though, aren't ideal, especially the loyalty one. In this area of the world, you're going to have a lot of vassals, I would think, and some tributaries. However that's going to work exactly, we'll probably find out more about that on Friday. There are ways to decrease the doom number, though. You can do that by killing people in combat, or you can do this by looting locations with high development. So you get in your boats, you go to London, you go to Paris, you loot those areas, you come home, and they're like, you know what, you're pretty cool. Let's not do what Maximum Doom will do. And what does that do? Well, it will kill your ruler and your entire dynasty as they get sacrificed to the gods. The people are scared. They're like, look, the only way to get rid of this doom, kill all the rulers and then replace them with a new ruler, a new dynasty. Now, this is EU5. It isn't Crusader Kings. So it isn't the end of the world if your ruler and dynasty dies, unlike in Crusader Kings. But I would imagine you're going to try avoid this as much as you can, and there are ways to do that, as they are going to cover in a second. You can see in this next screenshot the doom number and how it is changing. And then the last screenshot here is monthly doom. This is your country modifier. In this example, only one thing affecting it, city location rank 0.01. But that is going to change as you continue. And this doom number does accumulate over time, and the bigger your country is, the more doom it will accumulate. This can be mitigated, however, by the mechanics they've already talked about, so killing enemies and looting locations, or by some of the religious actions they're going to cover later on in the dev diary. But there is only one way to ultimately escape it, and that is reforming your religion. This can be achieved by passing enough of the religion focuses. So you can see those on the screen now. There are currently 8 of these. Elevate our patron god, institute the flower wars, legal reforms, a bunch of these, and they're going to give us a breakdown on how some of these work. So these are necessary for you to reform the religion, as they said, but all of them do give you a debuff for your realm while they are active. But as you do need to collect a certain amount of them, you are going to have to just deal with that and then take some of the bonuses that they also give. So it's a bit of a, give and take depending on which ones you're choosing to do. So the first one they're going to show here is Elevate Our Patron God. This gives you Tolerance the True Faith -1, but you do elevate one of the gods, and they're going to show that now. So they don't show exactly what they do, but you can see the examples here. Monthly prosperity, I guess, is better. Garrison size will increase. Army movement gets better. And then some more here. Recruiting explorers, army maintenance, disease resistance. You are going to need a lot of disease resistance once the Europeans reach your realm. Or, maybe some craziness will happen and you'll go to the Europeans first. I mean, that's never going to happen, but, it is in the realms of possibility, I suppose. But you can see those here. They're going to be the bonuses but then you do get that negative effect that they covered earlier. There is also some further ones that you can do. So another religious focus is establish a special court position. This will increase your court costs by 2%. This does say will establish a role similar to a vizier, but it doesn't go into any more information. So I don't know if you actually get another position. I presume you do, because this is just a negative otherwise. But that is kind of what they hinted towards earlier. We will find out once we play as these realms. So you can see the next one here, Institute the Flower Wars. This will give you plus 100% noble power. That is not ideal. They are going to talk about the Flower Wars and the Casus Belli around this later on, though. The next one is Raise Sacrifice Rate. This will give you clergy power plus 100%. Our gods sacrifice their blood for humans, so now we have to sacrifice humans to our gods. And that is what's going to happen. If you're doing this, it's going to increase it. And then obviously the clergy get more powerful. They're saying, you know, this is what God says. Give us some more people. Let's have some fun times with our religion and see what happens. And then the following tooltip gives us a little bit more information on this example. So if you set your focus on this sacrifice increasing, you can see the clergy power plus 100%. When fully researched, you will get the following effects. It's weird that it says researched. I wonder if that will change before launch. I guess I'm not sure what it would say otherwise. But research just sounds a little bit wrong in this regard. But anyway, that's what it says. This religious focus will make the interaction appease our gods more effective by reducing more doom. And you can see the modifier there, 0.01 monthly doom reduction. And then you've obviously got other things that you can stack with this to try and keep that doom number down and help your realm. Well, not really help your realm, I suppose. Help your dynasty and your current ruler. And then as they said, there are some religious actions that you can do to interact with this system as well. The first one here is appease the gods. This will reduce your doom by 10. The next one is host a ceremony. A ceremonial festival is celebrated on a monthly basis, each time in honor of a deity. These religious people will celebrate a festivity dedicated to a certain deity each month. These months last 20 days. In each month, the celebration differs, and you will get a different effect depending on it. So this one is going to give you different modifiers each month, depending on which deity is being kind of celebrated during this. The next one is open a warpath. We will send emissaries to our neighbors to celebrate a flower war with them. We will gain the Flower Wars Casus Belli against the selected neighbor country. And you can see that Casus Belli here, conquer Khosrow attacker plus 900%, subjugate Khosrow attacker plus 900%, max antagonism though 0, conqueror and subjugate cost again nearly 1,000 worse, max antagonism for defender 0. The maintenance of our empire and the world requires a constant stream of captives. Only through a state of constant warfare can we ensure that we have this supply. And this is obviously going to get you those captives. You can then sacrifice them to your gods and, you know, happy times all round. The last action, Reform Society, allows the reformation of the religion when enough religious aspects have been enforced. But it does have one big con. Yes, there's one bad thing that can happen to you. And this is a disaster called Reform Society. And they're going to cover that after this first bit. So you can see it here. Reform Society starts the Reform Society disaster. If successful, the following may occur. Plus 20 stability. You will have the removal of a government reform. You will receive a new reformed religious government reform as well. All subjects of this government type will be annexed. We will convert to this new reformed religion. And our population of the old version of this religion in locations with at least 50% control will convert to the new reformed version. And then the old version of it, you will have to try manually convert those as you do normally with other religions. And you can see here the conditions to get this to happen. And then the next screenshot is going to be this disaster, the requirements for it to happen, and then how you can get out of it as well. And then as they mentioned, you can then get this reformed version of your society, and you can see what that gives you. Revoke privilege cost, minus 10%, which is pretty good. Crown power plus 33%. So I guess as you've shown, like, you can reform this faith. You've got rid of all the doom. I guess the people and this religion are like, do you know what? This king, this ruler, he's quite good. Let's give him some more power. You also receive an additional government reform as part of this as well. And then also your monthly progress towards centralization, 0.10. And this is how you're going to try unify everything together. And then I guess, you know, get ready for the Europeans. Or maybe this will happen after the Europeans are here. I guess depends on when you can get this completed. And then the reformed religion, you can see that here. Nothing too crazy to what it was previously. You can still use your slaves for raw materials. The army morale is still 10% better. Pop conversion speed, though, is 20% better. So that does allow you to kind of mop up all the old version of this religion and then also spread it elsewhere. Tolerance to the true faith is +1, and then also unrestricted slavery. So if the slaves are thinking, oh, they've reformed themselves, great, we're going to get a lot better things going on now. No, you're not. You're still going to be having a bad time. You're still going to be sacrificed. some things never change. And that is what your ultimate goal is, I guess, as this religion, trying to get it reformed, picking up these bonuses, and then also negating that doom system. Next, they're going to cover the next of these religions, and this is Maya ritualism. You can see, similar to them before, the religious page for this. Primary religion, Mayan ritualism. The primary language is Maya. Next, you see the same 6 numbers we see for all religions, the unity, the conversion rate, for example, the holy sites. And then there is a little bit different here to the previous one. So you have religion modifiers. There are 7 gods in this one. You have religious influence. You don't have the doom number in this one. There are some aspects, but none in this example. And then there are some religious actions that you can take. And as you can see, they are different to the previous religion as well. And they're going to cover some of these right away here. So the first one you can see is Katun. A Katun is a measure of time for the Mayan people. It corresponds to 19.7 years. The end of one of these and the start of the next one is marked by many ceremonies and festivities, making the occasion a truly important date for the ruler and his people. If by the time the current Katun ends and we have invested enough resources to prepare for the celebrations, we will gain a Katun celebrated for 10 years. On the other hand, if we are not ready for it, we will get the celebration mismanaged for 10 years instead. We will be fully ready once religious influence hits at least 90. So this mechanic revolves around preparing for this celebration every 20 years of the game. So you're going to be building up to this, trying to reach that number as good as you can. So then you are picking up the good modifiers from this system. The player needs to invest resources using different actions to raise the country's preparations for the Katun, measured with a religious influence currency, as they mentioned earlier. The country can choose between 3 degrees of intensity for their preparations, and this impacts the effects they will get during these modifiers. So you can see the first one here, preparing for a Katun, maximum tax minus 20%, monthly religious influence 0.06. So as you can see, you can't just have this going. You probably won't hit that number if you only have this version ready for it. Monthly prestige 0.10. Tolerance to the true faith 0.5. So that is actually pretty good. So the Katun will happen on actual dates according to the historical Maya calendar. So you will encounter the first one in September 1342, with the following ones happening every 19.7 years later, as they've already mentioned. So they won't always be in September. It is going to move slightly every time one of these comes up. Once the Katun finishes, the country will get an event with different outcomes depending on how prepared they were for this event, and then it will reset your preparation back to 0 and the whole cycle restarts. And you can see an example of this here, the start of a new Katun. After 20 years, we have started the long count of our people. It is our duty to be ready for the next one. The people will not be disappointed is the option for this example. And the next they're going to show us those different modifiers again. So the Katun celebration mismanaged. This is if you don't hit those numbers. And you can see tax efficiency, army morale, navy morale, efficiency of our cabinet, all 5% worse for 20 years basically. And also your monthly prestige is 0.05% worse as well. And then you can see the other side of this, tax efficiency, army morale, navy morale, efficiency of our cabinet plus 10% better. Monthly prestige 0.10, tolerance to the true faith +1 as well. So if you do get this celebration rolling, it is going to be a good time for your realm. And then next they're going to show the same thing again. I believe this is if you have it rolling, although they don't say exactly that is what this means, but it is the same name, but it is twice as good. So I presume this is if you get these like back to back, they just start adding on top of each other maybe. Again, they don't exactly say here, unless I missed it somewhere. But anyway, that is what I guess this means. So if you keep getting these every 20 years successful, you will just get gradually better and better. Again, I could be wrong here. They don't actually say it all. It just shows this after the previous one. And then as we saw earlier, there is a way to kind of work towards these through the normal preparations, but there are other ways to do it. The one they're going to show here is sacrifice noble blood. So it isn't just slaves you can sacrifice in this area. Obviously, if they are purest, the most noble, they're also the most valuable. And you can see here, this will gain you 10 religious influence. That is quite a lot. Maybe you think you're going to miss this and you want to speed it along a little bit. You can see it also gives you clergy and commoners estate satisfaction plus 10% better. So it isn't just the religious influence, it does help you in other ways as well. You can also pay holy sites a visit. You can see this example, the Pyramid of the Magician. You will go here, this will give you 10 religious influence. This might change, I guess, as you progress through the game, but you can see here, and that will cost you 50 gold again in this example. And then on top of ways to gain more religious influence, there are ways to actually spend it. So maybe you're very close to hitting the requirement. You've got maybe, you know, like 5-7 years left to go, and you're thinking, okay, I'm going to have a bit of spare influence. I'm going to spend it on something else. You're going to spend it by hosting a ceremony. You will have this celebration for a year. As you can see, it costs you some gold and influence. So it is a bit risky, But if you think you're definitely going to hit it anyway, you can activate one of these. And the modifier that this provides is different depending on the month that you host this event. This is based on the historical calendar for this religion. And then as we saw earlier, there are gods for this religion, similar to the first one that we looked at. And some of them are actually the same gods with different names. They do say here there is dynamic naming for these gods. And then they give an example here. I'm not going to try butcher the name, but they do say it's the same god with dynamic naming. And you can see some of those on the screen now. Again, similar bonuses, monthly prosperity, army movement, army maintenance, similar to what we saw with the previous religion as well. And then you will have one of these gods celebrated at this ceremony and you will get that bonus. And again, that does cost you influence, but I think it's probably worth the risk, unless you think you're not going to hit that 90 number, which you do need when the calendar kind of flips over every 20 years roughly. And with that, that is the end of looking at the kind of specific religions. They're going to go into a bit more of the like shared mechanics here that are covered by all the tonal religions, as well as many of the folk religions that you will find around here. So they're going to show the religion here that they just decided to call Tonal, namesake of the tonal group, gathering under this umbrella beliefs kind of related to the previous two religions we saw, but they are still distinct from them. So this is kind of like a catch-all, I guess, for some of the smaller religions that were found around here. You can see it on the screen here again, the third time we've seen this screen really. The religion, the language, those 6 main stats that all religions have. And this example, very similar to the previous one. And then again, the religious modifiers, there are only 3 gods in this example, and the religious aspects as well. So you can see the 3 gods again here. You can see the monthly prosperity, the army movement, and the army maintenance. As they said, these gods kind of shared around this area with just different names depending on which religion it is. So the gods of a country of these religions are always present in the countries, but the countries can choose a religious aspect of worship as their specific god, doubling the effect of that god. I wonder if it removes the other ones. I guess it does. So you lose the other 2 bonuses, but you like double up the one that you choose. And you can see that example here. So monthly prosperity 0.2% better, army maintenance minus 10%, army movement minus 10%. Now it doesn't say if this is the doubled value or if this is the normal value. I guess it's the doubled one because it would show you this when you press the button, so this must be the doubled value. But again, I could be incorrect, I guess, but that is what I think it does show here. And with that, guys, that is the end of the dev diary. Let me know what you think about it. As I said, we are going to be covering the Aztecs on Friday, so I would imagine we'll get a little bit more religious information out of that, and then also other mechanics for the Aztecs, other events. I'm sure we'll get some, European-focused events as well. Once they land, once they come into your realm, and then all the crazy mechanics kick off, all the different disease mechanics, and then fighting them off. But with that, we'll leave it there for today. As always, hit that like button if you've enjoyed today's video. Subscribe if you're new here. I'm covering all the news around EU5, all the dev diaries, all the Tinto flavor. I also cover Crusader Kings 3 in a very similar manner. So if you enjoy my content for this and you play Crusader Kings, or you're thinking of getting into Crusader Kings, do subscribe to the channel and catch up on all my videos. But as I said, we'll leave it there, and I'll see you all next time.